Hi, my name is Gordy Hogue, and this is Community Connection. Each of us have stories that help us understand each other and help to bring our community closer together. I have been very fortunate to have met many interesting people who've had a positive, profound impact on our community and far beyond. People who've had incredible life experiences and fascinating stories. Community Connections is about these people and about their stories. I'm sure you'll enjoy meeting these amazing people as much as I have. Thank you. Please enjoy. Hello, my name is Gordy Hogue, and this is Community Connections, and I'm honored and delighted to have as our guest today, Elaine Cheung. Elaine, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Gord.
Quite an honor. You've made enormous contributions to our community since coming here, and I want to talk about that and get a chance for people to learn a little bit about you. So can you tell us where you were born and what your journey was to get into this community?
Sounds good. So I was born in Hong Kong, and my family immigrated in 1983. I grew up in West Van, and I went to school all in West Van, elementary school, high school, and I went to SFU, where it's funny. At first, I thought I wanted to study to become the FBI because I thought I watched Silence of the Lambs at the time it came out, and I was like, oh my God, I want to be FBI, not knowing that it was a totally different system up here. And so I went to criminology, hence SFU. Otherwise, I would have gone to UBC probably, because they were the only ones with criminology program. And after the first year, I was like, no, I'm going to go pursue my original love, which is science. I wanted to be a vet. So I went another 3 years in science. And at the end of it, I just did not want to be in school anymore. It was just too many years of in school. So I left school. I never studied business, anything like that. It was always science or criminology. And then I started a little coffee shop in Kerrisdale. I moved out of Kerrisdale, and it was a flop because I had no idea anything about marketing, about anything about coffee shop. I was young. I was 21 years old, like it was just, no, it didn't happen. So that closed down, and then moved to Toronto and started online businesses, different online like e-marketing businesses, online marketing, a lot of affiliate program marketing, selling products online, whatnot. So that I learned how to do the accounting from that point, learned how to do Photoshop. I learned how to do online, like HTML programming, all this stuff. Back then, there was no such thing as WordPress or, Wix. You had to HTML code and whatnot. So I learned that, and good thing I was a quick learner at that. So stayed there for a few years. And then in 2003, I was asked to come back to Vancouver, to actually Chilliwack, Abbotsford. There was an ice cream plant called Coast Mountain Dairy out in Yarrow by Cultus Lake. And my godfather was a shareholder of it with some chicken farmers. And he convinced my father to get some shares into this company. So I wasn't coming back from Toronto, but then they were like, oh, Elaine, this company it's really going kaput. Let's put it that way. It's going bankrupt. It's gonna. We need someone that we can trust to come in and manage it. And I've no idea anything about ice cream, nothing. But I was like, okay, I was ready for a change in my life. So I came back and I said to my father, I said, I would do it for, I think I told him I'll do it for 6 weeks or something like that. And he goes, you can't do it for 6 weeks. You need to come in at least 6 months. So I came in, and from 6 months turned to 10 years. And I was the CEO of this company. I came in at the age of 28, and then we sold the company at my age of 38. We were the biggest ice cream manufacturing plant in British Columbia and second biggest in Western Canada, besides Lucerne, which was in Alberta, which made all Safeway. We were making, by the end, I did turn it around. It took a lot of, oh my goodness, a lot of perseverance, stress, a lot of dealing with all of our suppliers that we owed a lot of money to, and having to work a repayment plan to everybody, including the milk board. Like one vendor, I owed him like $1 million just from one guy. And then there's like, plastic companies, container companies, I owed them 500,000, like owed a lot of money. So it was a bunch of negotiation with suppliers. I basically said, if you don't keep supplying me so I can make the ice cream, we can't make money to pay you guys. So everyone believed in me. I don't know how, but at 28, I was 28 and they believed in me, and then we worked a relationship. So it was really great. We actually supplied 80% of our business was private label. So we supplied all of Save On Foods private label. That means all the value price back then, all of their Western Family Classics. We supplied all of Costco's Country Pride. Yeah, that's what they had at that time. 4-liter pails. We supplied all of Cisco, their food service, GFS, Cisco, all of their own ice cream, GFS ice cream, Cisco ice cream, Associate Grocers, Bilo, all of them. Then we also made ice cream for export to Japan. We supplied all of Denny's Japan. Is a restaurant chain in Japan, which is not like Denny's here, is a high-end restaurant in Japan. We made all their vanilla and chocolate ice cream, extremely high fat. It was incredible, that ice cream. So at the end, after, I think it took me about 3-4 years to just go from, losing money to flattening out the curve, and then finally to making money. And then in 2003, I bought it. So 2013, sold it to Transcold, who is still around, Transcold, and they in turn in a few months sold it to Island Farms, who then closed it down and took all the formulas, and that was the end of Coast Mountain Dairy. But it was quite a big journey. I had to take the ice cream course. I had to learn how to make ice cream from the floor up. Like I was like in that plant all the time. So I moved out to Abbotsford, then I moved to White Rock. When I was in 2005 or so, I moved from White Rock because I didn't want to live in Abbotsford. So that's how I got into White Rock, the community. And then in 2013, I sold the company. And in 2014, 15, I did a lot of personal growth work. And 2015 was when I started volunteering for hospice. So Peace Arch Hospice. So that was the start of my volunteering, was learning how to, because I felt like I wanted to do something for the community, and that's the start.
So when you talk about doing a lot of personal growth things, what type of things were you involved in terms of personal growth?
So I didn't know that during the, when I was 20 years old and I went to Coast Mountain Dairy, I put so much pressure on myself to succeed, because coming from a Chinese family, I'm not saying all Chinese families are like that, but mine is, being the youngest of 3 kids and 2 older brothers, I was kind of looked as like the girls can't do anything but my dad's, like the family kind of system is like that. Family system was also, there's no crying. Like you just suck it up, no emotions, whatnot. So I sucked it up and I persevered, but I developed severe rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 32. I was walking with a cane.
Oh, dear. Because
of the pressure of doing that job. There was no crying. There was like, just do it. And it was like always there's stress and anxiety all the time. So I got really sick, but then I didn't do anything about it. I didn't go see a doctor because I didn't know. I just thought doctors were going to prescribe me with cortisone, like steroids. I didn't want that. At the age of 36, I had my daughter, and for 9 months, I was in remission of my rheumatoid arthritis, and it was the best 9 months of my life, Gordy. I could actually move around, whatnot. It was amazing. But then after I gave birth, 2 months after I gave birth, I was literally dying. My body shut down. Everything went really bad. I was gray. People thought I was her grandmother because the rheumatoid arthritis comes back with like a vengeance, whatnot, because I hadn't dealt with it. And it wasn't until, so I finally went to see the specialist, and they put me on something called triple therapy, which is an anti-cancer drug, anti-malaria drug, and a Crohn's disease drug. One of them is the hydroxychloroquine that Donald Trump was talking about, funny enough. So it kind of stabilized me. But I had, because of so many years of this flaring inflammation, I had actually lost all my back muscles. I couldn't lift my arms past this point. I couldn't have a bath for 10 years because I can't get out of the bathtub. I couldn't get up. My knees were always swollen, but I just lived with that all the time. So I have permanent damage on my hands from that. But it wasn't until 2013, my first marriage fell apart. And that's when for the first time in my life, I started looking into, well, how am I responsible for that relationship breakup? So I started, hence my personal growth. I had to take responsibility for what was really what my beliefs were inside. And that was really hard. But I was really determined to not have the same kind of relationship as I had before. So I really worked on myself. I didn't know I had self-worth issues. I didn't know I had issues. I thought I was like, wow, I could do anything. I could run companies, but I had no idea that my drive was driven by, like, I can't fail, like perseverance, sucking it up. That kind of is the wrong kind of drive that was driving my, to succeed kind of thing. So I did a lot of holistic stuff. I learned a lot of stuff. I went to do something called Psyche, which is very similar to, I guess people call it Psyche. It's basically changing your subconscious thoughts, whatnot, beliefs. So I learned from that. Then I went to different modalities. Then I became a Sakine healer. So it's kind of like Reiki, but it's a different thing. Then I went and did quantum touch, which is I learned that modality. So I was learning all these different alternative stuff that my left brain before never had experienced. So I went to the right side and started realizing I had a lot of stuff that I had stuffed down, let's put it that way. Then I took the counselor's course, a transpersonal counselor's course for 1 year. And something very traumatic happened during that time. And it was a good thing because then it opened up more. I didn't know I had all this anger and grief inside me. So there was more processing. And so to this day, I still continue and do a lot of transpersonal or self-help, self-care stuff, because I believe the only way to do anything or help anyone is to understand, deal with my own stuff first.
So when you decided to come to White Rock, and was that sort of getting away from where you were before and starting that redefining yourself? And how did you how did you pick White Rock?
White Rock. So my ex-partner at the time, the person I was married to, she was living in White Rock. So she moved out to Abbotsford with me, and then we like White Rock was sunnier. Let's put it that way. It's just such a beautiful place to live. I mean, every time I drove home from the ice cream manufacturing plant and drove back, it was always like blue sky over here.
Yeah. So it sounds as though you've gone all in for each time you make some decisions. It's not incremental. It's just criminology, and maybe I'm going to be a vet, and a coffee shop, and then online, but all into each one of those things, and sort of passionate, and then trying to look at what it is that's motivating you, or what your values are in terms of that.
Yeah, and I feel like my values have changed substantially, since high school, or so to speak, to now, like the last what year, in 2020, the last 5-6 years has totally, my life has changed. Like my value system has changed. I feel like I'm way more honest with myself. Why am I doing the things I'm doing?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
My experience with you is you're always full of joy. Smile and joy, and you carry that into rooms, and you carry that wherever you go.
Thanks, Gordy. Had to work on it,
It's the real you.
Yeah. Under layers, I mean, I'm sure you would have had a totally different experience of me if you had met me 6-10 years ago. Totally different. People, my friends who've known me for 20 odd years, they say I'm a totally different person.
And a very good sense. I'm sure they're very complimentary about that. So how did hospice fit into this, or what brought you to hospice?
That was actually, I was part of my personal growth. I wanted to do hospice because I wanted to understand how to talk to, understand myself if I had any grief inside me, and also how to empathetic listening skills. I didn't know that right at that point. Learning lots of stuff. And also helping others at the same time, at a time of grief, at a time of a very traumatic time in many families' lives when they are losing a loved one. So I wanted to pick up the skills because they were offering the training courses. So I learn all this empathetic stuff. So I took all the courses they had to offer, and I made my way up from just on the 6th floor of the Peace Arch Hospital hospice, doing rounds to one-on-one clients. So the counselor would assign one client, and I'm a volunteer hospice worker for them. And now I do their young adults grief group once a month. And tonight actually is the meeting.
Yeah. My experience is that the more I try and give, the more I learn about myself. When we
Absolutely.
became foster parents, I think I learned more from the foster children we had than we ever taught them. So it's that dynamic of giving and receiving within that relationship.
Yes, and understanding people, where they're coming from. They might be angry, they might be whatever the emotion is, and understanding, well, what's really behind that. And that's what one thing about the personal growth stuff I've done, and that counselor's course I've taken, is that it, we're not just reading someone based on their emotions. Like, what is really happening behind that person. So I don't find myself reacting anymore to someone who is, say, angry at me, or someone who is triggered. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you can never tell where people are at just by looking and spending some little bit of time with them.
Yes.
Then from there you got involved in Launching Pad as well. How did that come about?
Well, my partner at the time, at current time, she was asked by one of the board members of the Launching Pad, because they had met her, and she's a very fun-loving person and whatnot. And they thought, oh, you'd be perfect for the Launching Pad. Would you do it? And she's like, oh no, I'm not that kind of person. But my partner, she might be interested. She's that kind of person who's very working. Would be involved. Would like to be involved. So she asked me, and I went to the board meeting. I believe it was the last meeting before their AGM or so, and I said yes, I would be willing to come on board and help whatever way. And next thing you know, I was elected, and that was back in 2017. So yes, and then now I'm the president. I've been the president for the last 2 years.
Yeah, that Launching Pad has a special sense for me, because when it was being developed, there were petitions, because I live close to it. There were petitions coming around opposed to it, and myself and two neighbors up were all in favor of it. So it was really an interesting dynamic as our community grew, our neighborhood grew, with a bit of compassion and understanding with respect to it. And I've had a number of friends who have been clients there, and
Yes.
who have been a part of it. So where are you with respect to the Launching Pad and its plan to rebuild, or looking at expansion?
We are looking to rebuild. As a matter of fact, Gordy, how about you come on the board? We have an AGM coming up in June, and we would love to have you on the board.
I just got a notice in the mail about the AGM, reminding me that my memberships has to be renewed.
That's right. So where are we at? We actually had Ed, who is the founder of the Launching Pad. He retired in 2019. Since then, we've had a new executive director, Tony, back. He's taken over, and he has actually really changed the Launching Pad from what it was to what it is now. We are now offering, there's counseling services, there's working with sources on that one, and there's life skills coaching. We have now changed the kitchen to a peer-to-peer kitchen program, meaning we teach the guys how to cook instead of being cooked for. And we volunteer. We were volunteering at the Cloverdale Community Kitchen. Before COVID hit, we were volunteering once a month as the volunteers for support, like setting up, tear down, washing dishes, the kind of thing. It became eventually morphed into once a month. We cooked the entire meal, from menu preparation, setting up, tearing down, washing, cooking, everything, prepping. They enjoyed it so much that they asked to work with us in more capacity. So now we've turned into a satellite food bank. We're now a pop-up food bank 2 to 3 times a week when we have surplus food. And we feed about 4 different recovery houses. And there have been some families adding into the list when they apply. So we're hoping to feed more families in the community in the near future. That's really exciting. So we're teaching the guys how to give back and being responsible, and supply management of food, and how to cook food. We give them once or twice a year food safe. We just bring food, and so they get certified. Also first aid, once a year they all get first aid certified. So we're giving them life skills, so then when they do go back out into the world, they got skills.
What do you think is, now you've purchased the corner store that was across from Launching Pad? You want to talk a little bit about the project there and Hilarity? And
yes, Hilarity, we're really excited about. So my partner, Lizzie Allen, who is the founder, I'm the co-founder of Hilarity. It used to be called Addictive Comedy. We've rebranded to Hilarity. We are basically married therapy with stand-up comedy. We're super excited about that building, because we're going to turn it into a comedy hub, or a building of community where the community come together, listen to stand up in a safe environment. where there's no alcohol served and in a plant-based food kind of thing. So everything is focused on who's coming. You could be speakers, you could be stand-up comedians, it could be shows, it could be classes. We're doing teaching courses where lots of stuff. And we're also, another exciting thing is that we have a documentary team who's following us. We're just in the final stages of signing up the legal documents, and they'll be doing a series called Hilarity, a traumedy series where they follow Lizzie Allen teaching a group of our graduates through a 10-week course and then their performance and the whole story. So it's like a reality TV show and a documentary married into one. And the goal is to have it into Netflix and whatnot, because ultimately our goal is to inspire people to have the courage to look at themselves and be vulnerable and go, you know what, I have this, whatever it may be. Maybe it's depression, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's I can't hear or something, but they've never admitted it to anyone. And to have the courage to say, you know what, it's okay to have all this. And so we want it to be broadcast into a big audience base so that people can be inspired around the world. It's not just about us. And it's not about us making money. It's not about that. It's about how do we help people to inspire them to go, you know what, I do have the power to change my life. I do have the power to stand up.
With all these experiences you have, how has that influenced you as a mother?
How do I inspire? Okay, so I listen to her. I think more than anything, whatever she says, I listen to her, and I don't try to teach or correct. I allow her to say her thoughts and allow her to come to her own conclusion so that she can trust that she's always coming back to a safe place to explore her thoughts or ideas without being told, oh, don't say that, or blah, 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 blah. Of course, there are things that are not good, whatnot. There are lessons, but majority of the time I try to spend time and listen to her and spend time in a sense that we play a lot of board games together, all of us. Yeah. So it's like building community, about talking to one another, telling stories. We make stuff up. We play not Pictionary. Is that what you got? Charades, in the living room kind of thing. Yes.
So I think in many ways stories are how we make sense of our lives. Stories are the way we communicate, and without stories, I think in many ways we wouldn't have any way to distinguish the patterns of our lives and the things that happen within that. So stories or the narrative becomes so important. So if there's to be a story of your life, what would the title of the story be, and what would the theme of that story be?
Oh my goodness! If there's a story to my life, it'd be like the convoluted journey of Elaine. You know what, you put me on the spot there. I don't know what I would call it. It's just all very loopy. You see a straight line and it just decides to loop, and now it's all over the place. But there's always an ending. At the end of the day, there's still a focus, which is like, how do I become a better person? How do I improve myself so that I can be of service to others? So maybe it's the journey to know oneself, to know myself, the journey to know Elaine. There we go. There's the title. How cheesy can that be?
Story to Elaine.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of research now that talks about the generalists, and we've for probably decades been looking at the specialists. So we need these people who are specialists and things, but really the research now is saying those people who've had this broad range of experiences and have had challenges through that are actually the ones who are now making major contributions and suggesting
Absolutely.
The future belongs to the generalists. So certainly the number of experiences you've had and how some people get defeated by those, but each one of those has somehow contributed to the things that you want to be and the things that you're doing and the contributions you're making.
Well, I'm lucky in the sense that I myself had the determination to make it through because of my left brain training all my life. It was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. So I went through my personal growth with the same attitude. I can do this. I can do this. So I persevered, right? And it was really painful. I'm going to tell you for real, anyone who wants to pursue, I tell people to grow themselves personally, it is hard work. It is not easy, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm so glad that I'm part of Hilarity with Lizzie, where we can try and inspire people just to take that step and see for yourself that you do have the power, just that little, if it's just a little tiny step, and just give them that feeling of, I am worthy of something. That's then it's worth it.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to see people when that happens. And each one of us goes through a number of challenges as we're trying to discover ourselves. And some people hide all of that and actually don't confront it, and others do. What do you think is the magic or the elixir that brings the people to a willingness? Does it have to be a traumatic event? Does it have to be a challenging, or is it something?
Yeah, well, traumatic events, I think, are historically the way it has been, because there's been no support. So it's like you get that one person out of the thousand that steps out from the ashes kind of thing, which is a very painful thing. But what we're trying to do is create a community of support. A community, when you come into Hilarity, you watch and you inspire, and everyone around you is supportive. So it's like so it's almost like a flower. You're budding out of the flower. So we're hoping that the process is easier. You don't have to have a traumatic experience. Maybe your whole life is just a steady trauma of never admitting something. What is trauma to someone? Everyone's different. But what we want to do is, you come into this place, you don't have to have a traumatic experience at the comedy, at Hilarity. It's just something that's inspiring. And everybody around you is like, you know what? I'm inspired too. Yeah, I think so. I would love to do this. And you know what I mean? And everyone's standing together and do it together. That would be amazing.
So people have the support, because so many
Yes.
people think they're a victim of everything that happens, and the recipient.
And they're the only one who feels that way. Lots of people think I'm the only one. I'm alone.
So if you had the chance the power to change one thing in our society or community or world, what would be the thing that you'd look at to try and motivate or change based on these values and these things that you've learned? What's your message for the world? And
look at yourself. Have the courage to be honest with yourself. That is the first step. But you can't change anything outside of you. You cannot change someone. What people think, that's their thoughts. You're only responsible for yourself. Stop stepping in other people's backyards. Stay on your side and work on yourself. Stop telling other people what to do. Have the courage. Have the courage to look within yourself and start there.
so if we were to go 100 years into the future, and people up 100 years from now look back on us, look back on the things that we've done at this time and in the evolution of life in the world, what do you think? How they're going to judge us?
I don't think the world in 100 years is going to change a lot. I mean, with this whole political situation happening in the US and with Hong Kong, 100 years they can look back and go, oh my God, it's a gong show. But at the same time, out of the ashes, like we said, there's going to be a few people who will step up out of this horrible thing that's happening around the world right now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it is happening in first world countries. Yeah, this is not like somewhere we don't pay attention to the news. This is in America. This is in Hong Kong, because my family's in Hong Kong right now. So I think in 100 years, people are still going to look at it, because I don't think we're going to be able to evolve that much in 100 years. Yeah. So we're still going to be look at that time. Look at that. People just don't understand. And it's always so much talk. That's what I find, is that historically, it's like, we can learn from it, but people never learn. They always talk about it, but they never learn, because it's always outside of us.
In some ways, the challenges that you've described in your life, that we all have in our lives, those little crises or mini crises that we interpret, in some ways, I think are reflective of what happens worldwide. That each time a crisis comes along within the world, we see some opportunity that comes out of it, and that's one of the things going on now with the challenges we're having. How are we going to make sure that we come out of this, not just economically, but we can change our world socially as well, and all the other things that come with making a better place to live. And that doesn't often happen. I've looked at the last 100 years of economic crises,
but you can certainly, with the uproars, you can certainly see the pulse of the people. You can see that there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hate. That is really what's happening. That's come to the surface.
And being able to be able to use that in a positive way.
Yeah. So look at yourself. Is it what's in me? How am I responsible in all of this? Because we do make the collective. So how am I responsible?
I think that's a great message for all of us. So thank you, Elaine, so very much. It's been most intriguing and informative, and you've certainly made a a big difference in your own life over the years, but you've also made an enormous contribution to the lives of others and continue to do that. So thank you so very much. Thank you for joining us today on Community Connections. Please tune in to our next show as more amazing people share their wonderful stories. If you haven't already, please click on the red subscribe button below, right down there, and view our updates. Feel free to leave any thoughts or comments that you may have. We're always trying to do a better job of connecting this wonderful community. Thanks again for joining, and until next time, keep connecting. Thank you.